Hello and welcome to this first episode of Pillow Talk with Core. My name is Eamon McGann and I'm the Client Solutions Director at Core, and I'll be your host today. Today I'm joined by a number of the senior team at Core, Conor, Rye and Brian, and today we're going to be talking about how we can help IT professionals sleep better at night. So with that, I'd like to hand over to the guys to give a brief introduction.
Hi, I'm Conor Callanan. I'm the CEO at Core. I've worked in IT for over nearly 40 years now, seen all kinds of evolutions go through, started off as technical, and now I've been running Core for almost 30 years.
Hi, I'm Rye Austin. I run the sales team here in Core. I've been working in IT across a number of roles, backing from technology through to strategic direction, pre-sales, and then sales for the last 25 years.
I'm Brian Packer. I run operations at Core. I've worked with numerous MSPs serving the London market, corporate market.
Okay, thanks all. The focus of this episode is Core's recent report on the sleep patterns of IT professionals. Bit of background on the report to start with. This was an independent report that we put together with Savanta. The details of how we executed the report are both in the report and on our website, so please have a look there if you want to find out a little bit about the context of the report. I should note that this report was carried out early February, so pre the current crisis. For me, there's some really amazing stats in the report and some quite surprising feedback in the report, so highly recommend you download the report and have a look. There is a link on screen as I speak. There are a number of stats and conclusions that we'll kind of cover in the episode today. However, to kick us off, some of the key conclusions, it's pretty clear that IT professionals are stressed. 29% of those surveyed said that the job was in fact too stressful. And clearly we understand that this has a number of impacts on the business and general impacts on IT professionals in general. 38% of those surveys said that the stress and worry was causing lack of sleep. And an amazing 25% said that they only got between 3 and 4 hours sleep at night. I think for us, the concern here is that clearly is going to have an impact. Things like errors and things like deadlines and people missing deadlines. And that came through quite clearly in the report. There is good news. And for those organizations that are moving to the cloud or cloud adopting, a fairly large percentage, 57% of those surveys said that whole process had, one, given a better work-life balance and had a better satisfaction level within the organization. So I think notwithstanding the fact that cloud and cloud adoption has its challenges, and cloud adoption in terms of the IT community, there are some fear factors which we've seen in practice. That between the four of us, I think I've done a quick calculation, there's somewhere in the region of about 80 years worth of IT experience. So very keen to get the collective feedback on the report, collective feedback on some of the key findings. So with that, I'll jump into our first question today. And as I've done on the intro there is a lot of information about the stress. And it is the key finding that the IT professionals find the job very stressful. As we talked about earlier, that has a pretty major impact in terms of missed deadlines. And the thing that I hear quite a bit is IT's reputation in the business, which can only lead to less motivated staff. So Conor, if I can throw this one to you as a first question, where do you see the biggest impact of a tired and stressed workforce being on the business? And what are your key strategies over the years to see how we can support both the IT professional and the business?
Well, the biggest impact of stress, is high absentee levels, poor timekeeping, poor performance, poor productivity, leading to low morale, poor motivation, increased employee complaints, ill health, accidents, incidents, and all that leads to, again, higher turnover of labor for organizations. So it's very critical we address it, and we address it in Core in a number of different ways. We have key strategies around, helping let employees let off steam by, playing sports, organizing social events, having all company events around Christmas, around Halloween, so again, just organizing office cheer type activities. And of course we offer places for employees to unwind. We have a very strong wellness approach, which obviously includes mental health. Again, to look after our employees, very good social events within the company, including all company events, team events, etc. And of course, we survey regularly for feedback. We primarily use a tool called Office Vibe, but again, we regularly look at and seek out how we can improve what we're doing, and one, get feedback for what we are doing, and two, what other ideas there are out there to improve the stress levels. But again, reducing stress is also about automation and automating the simple tasks and the repeatable tasks to give people more time, and also combining that with work from home strategies. So that's really what we're doing. The strategies we have implemented around this to give people a better work-life balance and reduce the overall stress.
Okay, thanks, Conor. I know that in the current climate, we've introduced our virtual beer o'clock on a Friday, and personally, and having speaking to the team, I know what an impact that's had. And even just last night, speaking to some of our team in Poland, they feel they're very connected to us as a business. So I think we're seeing quite a big change at the minute. Brian, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think obviously maintaining that level of employee engagement is really important. It really comes from the leadership in terms of how we are able to diffuse the stress and diffuse any tension that may occur within the team, and using technology as well. So using things like Teams to make sure that we're constantly in touch with people that may not be based in the office, making sure that we're driving through things like Office Vibe, the engagement, checking the questions, getting regular feedback from the teams, and trying to spot any trends and making sure that we diffuse that situation as quickly as possible if we do start to see some areas that are cause for concern for the staff.
Thanks, Brian. And Rye, obviously somebody who leads both the sales team and has responsibilities for functions like HR. Keen to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are some really visible symptoms of that and the impact, and that is around quality of service delivery. But there's also items that are less visible. So that can be energy taken away from that long-term plan, the strategic view, long-term improvements that kind of gives longer, sort of deeper problems that bite you later on. Also, retention of good talent. People that are stressed tend to leave. And in terms of how we support our customers around that, by outsourcing that issue to suppliers like Core, obviously we can take some of the bits that cause them pain, some of the bits they struggle with, particularly more mundane things, and as Conor was kind of discussing, looking at automation, taking away those mundane tasks so they can focus on stuff that's more important and also more interesting. So yeah, there's parts that are really visible, parts that are less visible but can bite you later on.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. So moving on, one of the statistics that I think I was quite surprised by in the report is suggests that CIOs are not as stressed as some of their less senior colleagues. 65% of CIOs at our director level IT professionals said that they were quite satisfied and had a good work-life balance, whilst their lesser senior colleagues nowhere near the same statistic. So since the report was launched just this week, that particular stat has provoked a number of comments and surprise. I suppose there is a belief that CIOs are under considerable stress. And Rye, you and I get to meet CIOs in our day-to-day job and some senior IT leaders. So really keen to get your thoughts on what I think has been a little bit of a surprising stat to see kind of almost the balance shifted around there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you can read a lot into that statistic, and I think really every example is different, so it's hard to kind of have a general why that's the case. Some of the things that I've certainly seen is that the kind of issues that cause stress around poor process, poor systems, lack of automation, that tends to impact the kind of frontline doers the most. So I think they're the ones that would be forced to compensate for poor systems, poor strategic planning around things. I think the impact probably hits them the hardest. So they're the ones that would kind of gloss over those challenges through hard work. I'm sure the CEOs are still stressed, especially if they're seeing their teams working too hard and the output not being where it should be. But I think that's one factor at least into why it's hitting the below management more than the CIOs. That's at least one thing that I've seen. Okay,
thanks, Rye. And Conor, you talked, Brian, Rye mentioned automation. You did in also earlier. Just keen to get your thoughts and maybe even where automation plays a part in there.
Well, automating tasks simply enables us to run them at any time we wish to run them, so not needing to have staff available, and again removing workload as well from staff. Obviously, automation isn't the answer to everything, but quite a lot can be automated, and we concentrate very heavily on that. But I do agree with Rye's comments that the first people to see the front face of the business in IT support is your first line staff answering the phones or responding to requests that are raised, and they definitely are the front face of it and bear the blunt of poorly implemented technology, and have to suffer the wrath sometimes of the people and the frustration of the people that are calling up with those issues. So I'm not surprised that they are more stressed, but I wouldn't want to concentrate on who's the most stressed. I'd rather concentrate on resolving them and sorting those stresses out.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. It is a bit of competitive, and I think Brian, again, somebody who's running an operation, many frontline people work for you. So I think hearing your thoughts on that would be very helpful.
Yeah, again, I think it's down to perception to some extent. You know, you have to. Employees get stressed when they're constantly being asked to do lots of things, and they're constantly asking themselves, "Why am I doing this?" You know, so if they've got visibility of their workloads in the context of the strategy of the business, I think that helps. So I think, you know, as long as the IT leaders are making sure that the strategy is disseminated down to the team and they understand why they do the things they're doing, that should help to relieve some of the stress that they're under. So for me, it's really important to make sure that there's great communication, that the staff can see the picture that I see, and that helps them understand why they're having to do what they're doing, and it just puts it in context, and that just sort of takes some of the stress out of the situation. Okay,
thank you, Brian. You know, stress and the pressures behind stress are kind of a key topic in the report. You know, it was clear that day-to-day operations, BAU operations, are causing some significant stress. 40% of those surveys highlighted IT support, and 36% of those surveyed highlighted IT maintenance activity as the aspects that cause them stress and worry. Maybe again, back to you, Conor. In your experience, what do you attribute this stress to? And as a managed service provider, we've been in the industry helping both ourselves and our customers to get through that stress. How do you think we can support both the IT professional in terms of the job they do, and then the impact that has to the business itself?
To the first point of your question, I mean, it's just simply the complexity of IT nowadays. When after, you know, with over 30 years experience in IT has never been so complicated. It has never covered so much depth, so much ground, and the rate of change has never been faster. And of course, there's huge implications for companies should they get security wrong, from fines to immense reputational damage. A security breach is now a very stressful event for an organization. All of these factors make it a very stressful environment to work in. As for the second part of your question, because of our scale, our investment in R&D, the knowledge and specialization of our teams, the certifications we hold from partner statuses through to ITIL, through to ISO, we are better placed than most IT departments to perform these tasks at scale, consistently and much more cost effectively. And this in turn frees up your IT to concentrate on the innovation that will drive your business goals. So that's how I see a company like us can assist and really power forward companies that we work with.
Okay, thanks, Conor. Brian, Conor mentioned about, you know, IT is more complicated than it's ever been. We've got more tools and so on. You know, first part of the question is around stress that puts potentially on the IT professional. You know, I'm keen to hear your thoughts a little bit around skilling. You know, whether IT professionals in your experience feel that skilling element is a good thing, a bad thing, and just in general, your thoughts around what's causing the stress. And again, equally, how as a managed service provider we can help the IT professional.
So I suppose for me, there's two things that tend to lead to IT professional stress. One is if they are being asked to do, you know, continually repetitive tasks and doing the same thing over and over again, and you know that in itself is brings on stress just because of the monotonous nature of the work they're doing. And the other one is the possibility of making errors when they're working. So and the potential impact of that, as Conor said, you know, in terms of potential impacts on reputational damage. So I think as much as we can, we want to take on that sort of business as usual work, look to see if we can automate it, pass that work over to people that have got many years of experience, and that then frees up the IT professionals to concentrate on the interesting bit, piece, and then the reason that we do this job, which is the problem solving, the learning. That's the reason why we get into this industry, is because we like solving problems. We like to work with new technologies, and so really that's what we aim to do, is to focus people on the strategic direction of the business and leave the mundane feeding and watering of the servers or the kit and the environment over to people like Core.
So the key element there, Brian, is strategic, allowing IT professionals to focus, being skilled to focus on kind of what really matters. So Rye, what's your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and for me, I can wrap it up in actually a really old saying that I heard a few years back about it being extremely hard to be efficient when you're inefficient. And if we look at IT teams, they're generally weighed down with reacting to sport tickets, and some of those things you can't always plan. Issues happen, you have to respond to them. And if you've got limited resources, which people tend to have, sport tickets roll in. If you're busy reacting to what's in front of you, you've got minimal time to plan to do better and improve and implement those changes that make you more efficient. So if you haven't got time to actually plan that stuff and be strategic to be more efficient, you get stuck in that downward spiral. So I think that's one of the things which kind of people get locked into, and where we can help is that as a business we dedicate ourselves to having an efficient way of running IT. So we can effectively take that problem off of their hands, and not leave them stuck in that space where they're struggling to kind of deal with tickets as they come through. We implement those changes for them. We drive the strategy forward. We take the volume of work off them if need be as well around reactive tickets. So that problem, if they want, can be outsourced.
Okay, so our report highlighted how IT is the heartbeat of the organization. I think a really good stat that came out of the report was many of those surveys feel they're well paid. And for me, the stat I really liked was that they felt they had a positive impact on the business. 57%, as I mentioned earlier, reported that there was a direct correlation between their satisfaction and the fact that they were reskilling and that their businesses were moving towards the cloud. So I think, Conor, if I can ask you this question, where do you see IT's role in the transformation of the business, and what role has cloud adoption played in supporting this?
So IT is central to all organizations and has played and continues to play a huge role in transforming organizations. And we can look at the current crisis as a prime example of this, with the ability to work from home now an essential need for most organizations. So again, IT is central to that and central to giving that ability to an organization. You can then look at just all the industries that are being transformed currently by technology, from Uber all the way through to fintech. You can see it. You see it everywhere, all the way to Amazon. You see it everywhere. So, and it's only becoming more and more pervasive, both at home and in work. As for cloud is central to this for many, many reasons. From being OpEx based, so it's scalable with little capital expenditure needed, to less operational issues, as most providers are actually the manufacturers and the specialists in that service or product. So they're able to run it. It has less bugs, more reliable, it's more cost effective. And really cost effective to you, because you won't need those highly skilled experts if you've outsourced it to a service organization. You won't need those resources. Those resources can be reallocated somewhere else. And usually cloud is usually a 24/7 access from anywhere. Generally, it's got better security because it can afford better security. Its reputational risk is too high. I mean, the amount of money Microsoft spend on security compared to any other organization in the world is just incredible. And that works all the way down through the industry. Very few companies could spend as much money as these organizations spend on security. So, and I could go on, but I won't. But cloud is here. It's here to stay, and stay in a significant way.
Brian, your thoughts on that question? Yeah, I suppose it kind of goes back to the engineers and what they enjoy doing, and the good thing these days, I think, is that if you are continuing to upskill and drive your knowledge forward around cloud technologies, be that on the SaaS side or the infrastructure side, you're getting you're doing the new learning, which engineers really love. It's far more enjoyable than the day-to-day sort of systems administration and just keeping the lights on. And B, those skills are more and more in demand, and so it opens up a whole plethora of opportunities for the individual to take their career forward.
Cool, thanks, Brian. And Rye, you and I have worked together in Core now for nearly 10 years. And we've been out there meeting clients, and we've been in that transformation journey from insurance companies that have gone through complete transformations of how they operate. So kind of we've seen it firsthand, and cloud's been part of that over the last X number of years. So keen to get your thoughts on kind of the impact.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously now more than ever, really, IT is pretty central to how effective an organisation is, and adapting change has always been key. And we've seen the impact of those kind of organisations that can't keep pace with the market, they can't adapt and don't embrace new technology. They're the ones that tend to fail, unfortunately. So it's pretty key in terms of something that's up there in terms of what's important to an organisation. And I think really cloud is just the latest example of an opportunity that presents itself to an organisation to be more effective and to be better. And some adopt it, some won't. Generally speaking, the cloud is there and people should be using it, but it's not the same for every customer. I do speak to organisations about is IT driving their business forward, or is it constraining growth? And that's one of the things that kind of helps kind of understand, is it broken in terms of where it is now? But really for me, cloud is just one example of how you can adopt a new way of doing things and be more effective. But I don't see cloud as being just one size fits all. When we have conversations with organizations that say, well, I've already adopted the cloud, that means many things to many people. So what I see being most important is adopting the change that's effective for them, for that use case, for that customer in that market. So that's where we can really help, is to understand what the cloud means to them, how to adopt it effectively, what the impact will be, not just kind of saying, I've adopted the cloud, I'm done, but doing it right. And that's where we kind of see the impact being.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So I've left the last question and to the end as the biggest question, really. Whilst earlier we talked about how IT support and IT maintenance are major stress factors, without question, the number one concern in the report was IT security, with 54% of those surveyed saying it was the area that caused them the most worry. As a Gold partner, we help our customers deploy all of the Microsoft security sets, so E3 and E5, EMS. We get involved in the Microsoft Threat Protection software and Azure Sentinel. So we hear on a daily basis some of the concerns. I mean, I'm only in the last couple of weeks, I've been in meetings where CEOs are really very worried about, am I secure? I've got the tools, are the tools configured correctly? So Brian, I'm going to start with you on this question. Keen to understand what you think are the main challenges organizations are facing from an IT security perspective. So what are those challenges? And where does Microsoft technology empower your average SOC to get through those issues and manage the kind of day-to-day workload that they have?
Yeah, I think there's been a complete shift in the model, right? So go back a few years ago, everybody was worried about their perimeter, what firewalls they had in place, what network access control they had in place. Now, of course, the data is sitting in the cloud. The users will be on corporate devices, but they'll also be on home devices, they'll be on phones. And so it's much more, the model has shifted much more to protecting your data and making sure that you know who's accessing that data. So Microsoft have done the most work in terms of around identity management and making sure that we know who is trying to access a piece of corporate data at any point in time. And, sort of built in lots and lots of rules around multi-factor authentication, conditional access, risk-based access. So the sort of systems that you're used to seeing in corporate banking are now appearing and being made available to all enterprises and all SMEs. So and with that comes a change in the technology landscape. So you've got to have a much more of an umbrella approach to security, where you are protecting your data and you're making sure that only the people that are allowed to access that data can access it. And in terms of data distribution, again, they've brought in a lot of technologies to enable us to make sure that data is not redistributed beyond what the corporate policies and the corporate governance states there should be.
Okay, Thanks, Brian. Rye, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I mean, security in the cloud, those two kind of very much go hand in hand. And for me, I'm at a different start, really, is that the biggest challenge I see is it's misunderstood. So when people look at the cloud and they're fearful of the change and the stress involved in managing it, a lot comes from really proper education and knowing what's really involved and knowing the changes that are there. And Microsoft, correctly so, are taking now an absolutely data-centric view of how to make sure your data is secure first and working up from there. So layers of onion that really surround the data and making sure that's protected. So I think that fear of the unknown, that fear of control being taken away or not knowing where your data sits, those answers are there. It's just not everyone either is fully aware of those answers or fully understands them. So we spend a lot of time getting that clarity of good quality, relevant answers to help inform the decisions of the management team, that are the ones that are probably fearful of losing control of that data and how that security piece would change while adopting the cloud. So with education, they can understand the real risks, where they are there, and the deviations from the norm that they might be used to, but also the real benefits. So without being asked as management teams to decide about adopting the cloud and the risk that might associate that or the stress that might follow that, they're being given a probably a not accurate view of the risks or return. So how can they really make a good decision? So we try and address that first. And then once they can actually make an informed decision, when it comes down to running it, the benefit being is that there are plenty of suppliers out there now that can offer security for cloud as a service. So if they can do it internally, that's absolutely fine. If they want support and make a decision, absolutely fine. If they want to outsource that, though, to someone that has the right skill set, then again, that choice is there for them. So I think that the way Microsoft approach this means it's great for customers. They've got that complete choice. It's not something they should be scared of. It just needs to be understood fully. And then the options are there about it best for them to manage it, best to outsource it. That's their decision to make. But for me, it's about that correct understanding first.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think it's a good point. I mean, we see day to day how when you put the tech together, the different products and so on, it is about something that Brian talked about earlier, focus and the fact that the technology, it auto heals, it does threat hunting for you. So it's about making sure that the SOCs are focusing in on the bits they need to and not just keeping the lights on. So same question for you, Conor. Again, you've been involved in delivering IT security for a few years, so kind of keen to get your thoughts.
Well, again, that's for me the first part of that. I mean, it's just the constant evolving threat, and really the sophistication of the threats that are out there now. And how do you get an overall view across your security posture across your organization or across your company? And I find that what we have, and under Brian's guidance, have started to ensure that everybody working on the service desk is constantly aware of security, is constantly being trained about security, and is constantly involved in it. We do obviously have a security team on top of that, which we layer on top, but we amongst our teams make them very critically aware of this. This is not just because of GDPR and other rules like that, but also we believe it should be embedded into a team and not seen as a separate role or a separate task. Although we do have a separate security team to bring in those procedures. But I think that the great thing for us is really our partnership with Microsoft and their Microsoft Zero Trust access architecture. I mean, it really addresses the modern security challenges that come with cloud migration and a mobile workforce. By implementing the Zero Trust, Microsoft takes a layered approach again, as Rye discussed, to securing corporate and customer data. It's got a phased implementation of Zero Trust centers and all sitting around strong user identity, device health verification, validation of the application health, and security with least privilege access to to corporate resources, and all integrated to give you an overall one security view of the organization. So it is absolutely a fantastic suite of products, and absolutely gives us the right tools to cover the security needs of the vast majority of organizations.
Okay, thanks, Conor. Appreciate that. So thank you for watching today. As you've heard, both the report and our discussions today have highlighted some of the key challenges IT professionals are facing. We've discussed a number of the strategies that can help to alleviate that stress, both for the professional and in the business. Brian really talked about some of the areas of reskilling and focus Conor talked about the cost effectiveness of some of the technology and the reliability of some of the technology. And Rye, I thought, had an interesting comment really on cloud. Whilst we all agree it's not the panacea of all ills, cloud adoption has been identified as a significant factor in alleviating stress. But as Rye touched on, it is one method to help take stress away and move business forward, but it's not the only method. We have covered a lot of topics. The report is really full of additional details, so I'd highly recommend you download the report. Again, the link has been provided on the screen. We'd love to hear your feedback, and I'd also suggest you go to our website, core.co.uk. Many thanks for watching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eamon.
Thank you.